Hey, Mike Robinson with BlackHawk Paramotor USA, and today I've got a customer here, Brian Matthews. He's been flying for three and a half years or so, and pretty darn good pilot, and he just picked up another BlackHawk. His original one 3.5 years ago was a Talon 190, and he decided to move on up, and today he picked up Kestrel Elite Pro, which is part carbon and part aluminum. I'll let him take it from here. What do you think?
I love it. I love it. I checked out a couple other frames, right, and before I pulled the trigger on this one, and I'm just amazed at how light it is and how rigid it is compared to the other frames, right? To me, the biggest concern when I was looking for another paramotor was prop strike or the possibility of prop strike. And with this motor, it seems virtually impossible. The biggest difference I see is that the motor is so close to the frame. Like the prop is just mere inches from here, but at the same time, there's no flexibility in the hoop. You can't flex this hoop back near that prop to where there's going to be any type of strike. And with other frames, you could tilt the sides and things like that to where it could strike the prop. And that was my biggest concern, because I don't want to spend another $300 on a possible mistake. And so I just feel really confident with this unit. You know, the flexibility, the torque on the frame is just amazing. When you try and move this frame into the line of the prop, it just doesn't do it.
So are you twisting it? I notice your legs are against the swing.
I'm locking it with my legs.
Are you twisting it to see if there's any flex in the main frame?
Just to see if there's any flexibility between where this motor sits and this outside frame, and you just can't do it.
Yeah, I've experimented. I'm not going to mention any manufacturers, but I can twist the cage like you were, and you can see the main frame just tweaking away.
Yeah.
You can also flex the frame into the prop with your fingers, but you mentioned earlier about how far the props were out the back.
Oh, it's huge. They stick out, I would say, a foot further, right? And while some people might look at that and go, oh, that's extremely safe.
You're talking about from the net, so they're probably
it's not.
7 inches, 8 inches out the back.
Yeah,
right?
it's just not, because any type of tilting you do with a motor, right, you don't come in perfectly straight. You're sometimes leaning back a little bit, and that's when your prop strikes the ground. And that's when you just spend $300.
Well, there's been people that have had their, I just seen a video the other day of a guy whose whole heel was gone, boot and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, we all trip and we all fall. So it's always been my goal to build a stronger frame. I'll give up a couple pounds in weight if it's rigid.
Oh,
I don't want customers pulling their checkbook out.
I hear you.
Just because they
this thing
over.
is so light, though. This thing is so light even compared to some other frames. I mean, it's so amazingly light and rigid, and so that's what really sold me on it. The carbon fiber post, every little piece is just a little bit of weight pulled off of it without losing any strength.
What do you think about the Corsair? You were flying a different motor before.
I was flying your older motors like 3 years ago, right? And this thing is beautiful. It's got almost the same amount of power. I can barely notice a difference, right? But it's almost the same amount of power, but so much lighter. I want to say 10 to 15 pounds lighter than what I had before, and that's a huge difference.
Yeah, you had the original V2 with the Talon
190.
Yeah, and all that. Yeah.
So, and when you think about the 190, that was a great, powerful engine, but this is almost as equal, right, with 15 pounds off, and so that's a great exchange.
Right.
Great. This is like 160 pounds of thrust.
Right. You did choose a comfort harness, though, so you didn't go with the ultra lightweight harness, but I know why. I mean, we're hardly selling any of the lightweight harnesses because there's just not as much fabric and cushion there, and a lot of us like to do cross country, so you did get this harness, and they do weigh a little bit more, about 2.5 pounds more than the lightweight harness, but they're worth it.
Any flight over 2 hours, that's what you want, and that's what most of your average flight is, right? Is your 1.5 to 2 hour flight, right? Cross country definitely longer, but even with shorter flights, that light is just not as comfortable.
Yeah. So. Is there anything you would suggest for us to add? I mean,
I don't think
I know
so.
You've flown a lot of different paramotors, but
I don't think so. Really, you guys have nailed it, right? The net is super tight. The motor is just top notch with this Corsair and everything. Like I said, everything around the little pieces, the design of it, I just fell in love with, because I feel like it's a really easy motor to work on, to maintain, make sure I'm safe. That's the most important things for me.
Did you notice the mounting plate we have now?
Oh yeah.
It's not mounted to the frame. It's got its own plate.
Yep.
And it's also mounted on rubber.
Exactly, and also it makes it easier to, if I have to get into pieces, right? Whereas the older plates, V2 older, right? You didn't have that option, and so it's just harder to work on. I call them knuckle breakers, right? This is not going to break your knuckles.
How far away do you think that motor, the pull start, is away from the frame?
The pull start is, a 1/4 inch, maybe less, right? Like I said, it's right there.
There's no spacers there. a lot of the time the spacers that these competitors, again, I don't mention any names, but they're using, after a little while, the motor's just sagging.
What I feel is on the shoulders. So when this motor is right up against your back, the weight is on you, right?
Right.
When it's hanging way out, all that weight multiplies on your shoulders, and so all of a sudden you feel this as you're trying to take off.
So what it weighs on a scale is completely different to what it could feel like on
The
your
pressure
back.
on your shoulders, yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Well,
Exactly.
great. Well, thanks, man. I finished putting it together, and we'll go fly later on this evening.
Sounds good, man. I
All
really
right,
look
Brian,
forward to it.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.